All right, good morning, everyone. Kyle Nelson here from the Colorado Virtual Operations Support Team. Thanks to all those that are joining us live this morning, as well as those viewing the recording after the fact. We're going to have a really fun training today focused on digital misinformation and with verifying and authenticating posts and photos. Before we jump into things today, again, just want to give a huge shout out to all of our members for staying active, engaged, and involved here throughout the year. And also shout out to a few of our new members. I know we have a couple in the pipeline, but Matthew Fierro, I believe, Mickey, you said from Mesa County?
No, from Douglas County.
Excuse me, Douglas County. So Matthew, welcome to the team. Glad to have you on board. And huge shout out and thanks to everyone helping the team keep growing. Really, really excited to hear how things continue to evolve and see things continue to evolve here throughout the year. So to kick things off, we are going to one training per quarter. That can be modified, however, as deployments, activations, and member interest dictate. So just to make sure that we're getting the most value out of the trainings here, we have moved it to quarterly. So this one here in April, next one will be in July, and the final one for the year in October. And members, of course, will continue to drive our training topics and our interests. So if there is a topic, there is a tool, a platform, whatever it might be in the digital media space that you're interested in or would like to learn more about for the purposes of digital media monitoring, please let myself or Mickey know. And if we don't know and we can't figure that tool out, we can certainly help to find someone that does. Bring them in here. We've had plenty of guest presentations before. And on that note as well, if you have perhaps a guest speaker that you've heard from that you thought would be valuable to the team, or if you as a member of COVOST would like to share some of your experiences from either trainings, deployments, or actual events with the team, some of the positives, some of the challenges, and maybe some of the tools and techniques that worked best for you, we would love to learn about that as well to help us all continue to grow together. So that's a little bit on training. Mickey, any words this morning?
No, I want to make sure we have enough time for Kyle. He has a really great presentation for you today. And again, I just appreciate your membership and your readiness to respond if we get that call this year. It's all yours, Kyle.
Awesome. Thanks, Mickey. And as folks continue to come in throughout the live version of the presentation, feel free to drop your questions in the chat box. If you're looking at the viewing window over to the right next to the people button, you'll see a chat window. You can feel free to drop things in there. Otherwise, we are able to participate with our audio in this as well, whether you're using audio through your computer or through your phone. So feel free to stop me or jump in at any time. I'd like to keep this being interactive, and that way we can contribute and share our thoughts and resources as we go on throughout. And of course, for those that are viewing this live, if you want to go back and reference any of the material, we will be posting this recording in the training channel on the COVOST Slack after the fact. So you can always go back and reference this at a later time. So to jump into things here, we're going to be touching on digital misinformation and specifically on verifying and authenticating content in the digital space. For many of us and the populations that we serve, seeing truly is believing. A snippet of text about an evolving incident or event will maybe garner some attention, but a very striking visual image or a video will often garner a much higher engagement rate. It's catching the people's eyes, and with the decreasing attention spans that we have now across the board, across all ages, if we're able to stay engaged by a very striking visual image or a moving image, such as a GIF or a video, we're more often likely to see that content shared or amplified. And it's often very knee-jerk, I will say. It's not something that many folks in the public space take the time to verify or to kind of fact check or source check. if it resonates with them, if it's personalized to them, if it has to do with some type of event or incident that they or their family are personally experiencing, they will often share that information very rapidly without any regard for the authenticity of it. We're going to take a look at some examples today, both from historic events and from events that are a little bit more recent with folks. And the one that I'm showing here is the famous one, the shark swimming in the street, that came around during Hurricane Sandy and during every hurricane since Sandy, because it's an image that it resonates with people. And even though at first glance, it's, some of us would say, oh, we've seen that image before, for the millions that still have not seen that image or saw it many years ago, forgot about it, now it's back again. It's an image that keeps being shared throughout every single event, and you'll often see it on debunking or myth or false rumor pages from agencies during any type of landfalling tropical events. Looking back from that image, for those that have actually done a little bit of work on this, it's actually from a cover, or from a page lay from a 2005 article in Africa Geographic. And while not everyone can do such a good Photoshop job putting a shark into the water next to a vehicle, that this person was able to do it very well. And it's an image that lives on in infamy in the digital world. But it's images like this that are taken parts and pieces and altered or doctored that can give us a lot of challenge, not just as information distributors during an event, as official agency representatives and those agency mouthpieces trying to dispel these rumors and to push out good information, but also from a monitoring standpoint here that we have in COVOST, where as we are looking for information that's evolving during an event to help to inform the agency or agencies that have requested our assistance, we would like to make sure that we are giving them accurate information, and that includes being able to help to filter out some of these false images and this false information, and also alerting them when this false information is discovered so that they can put out the correct information and help to dispel those rumors as an official agency. And that's kind of what it comes down to. This is a topic that I'm very passionate about, being a meteorologist as well. I won't even get into the weather side of it, but that is something that we deal with constantly, not just on the meteorology side, because anyone that has a digital device now and a social media account, that's all they need to be able to use it. There's no real requirements. There's no fact checking. They can post whatever they want, whenever they want. And it really is incumbent upon us to be able to sort through some of that. And with supporting our local agencies and the agencies that request us, and even the agencies that many of you may work for, this is something, this is a very, very powerful skill set to have, and one that you can hone routinely, because unfortunately in this day and age, there is no shortage of events that are occurring, both natural and man-made. And these are all great opportunities to practice some of these skills and utilize some of the tools and techniques that we're going to present and review today. So for me, I like to break it down with two different types of analyses that we can use for the images. And the first one I call the gut check. Right? It's our traditional fact checking. Those of you that have worked in or with broadcast media or traditional media partners, thinking about source, date and time, and location. So for source, let's say, does the account, the person, the agency, I'm doing air quotes, you can't see me, but I'm doing air quotes. Does their account look real? And just when was that account created? If the image looks a little bit too good to be true, just go in and look at the source of the account. If they're on Twitter or Instagram, or if they're on Facebook, how many followers or likes, how many friends do they have? Is it an account that was created just as this event was evolving? Or is it one that's been around, is perhaps verified by that particular platform that it's on? Does it have the blue or the white check mark? And then what have they posted previously? Is it an account that posts regularly, or is it more spam-like? How connected are they to the content or the story? What location does that source account provide? Right? What is their given location in that particular platform? Are they in close proximity to that? Are they referencing perhaps friends or family that are being involved? Does it jive with the description that's there? So like me, I may post things about severe weather preparedness and flooding and weather hazards and say tornadoes, for example. I live in the central mountains of Colorado. We don't get many tornadoes here. It's often very, very rare, but I may be posting about an event that's occurring in the Midwest because that's where my family is. And so there's that connection, and I'll often put that in my content to give people that context of why am I posting about something that's not occurring in my backyard or on a mountaintop or a valley surrounding me. And if people are posting from, say, Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or some of these other social media accounts that allow them to append a location when they share that content, where is that coming from? Sometimes unintentionally, people will say that they're in one location or looking at something, but the location that actually is given or appended automatically, and they may not know about it, may be completely different from what they are actually saying or where they're saying that they are. Another quick tool, just a quick fact check, take their username, first and last name, and as well as the username on the account, and search it. Is there a connection between, do they appear on LinkedIn? Do they appear on other social media accounts? Do you get a bunch of web results that say, hey, and if a bunch of the web results perhaps are Snopes or PolitiFact or other accounts that, like BuzzFeed, for example, that often do a lot of debunking of myths during high impact and high visibility events, that may be a very, very quick key in for you to say, hey, maybe I want to double check some of this content that's being posted from this particular account or exclude it from my search results in future. So for example, for me, WX Kyle Nelson is my handle. And if you search that, you'll see it's consistent across platforms, as well as that's also my short URL for LinkedIn as well. So there's a very quick cross-reference between platforms. And I encourage you to do this on the personal side, if you're posting personally, as well as an agency, to keep some of that agency, that branding visually especially, consistent between platforms, so it's very easy to identify, oh yes, this is the same agency. Jefferson County Sheriff, their profile picture on this account, this social media platform looks the exact same as this other one. So a quick, very just visual gut check on the source. But now let's talk about date and time. What is the actual time that content was shared? Not when you're seeing it on your screen, because we know that we can view and we can see results, postings from social media that are hours, days, sometimes even weeks old. Things that have been reshared by friends or other accounts that are being brought back into the limelight now. But go and drill down to the original source that's being shared, and when was it uploaded? Are there reports or photographs or images that are complementing that content that's being shared, whether through text, through video, through pictures? Is there some correlation between those? And that can start to give us a higher degree of confidence that content is indeed occurring at the time and the place that this person says it is. One thing that I like to look for is shadows on objects. This is one of the hardest things to do when you're digitally altering an image, is to match shadows and things like that within the background of the image. And so is it consistent with the time of day? If their local time that they're saying they're posting is in the afternoon or the evening, bring up Google Maps, look at where their orientation may have been when they were taking the photo, and are those shadows coming from the west going towards the east as the sun would set? Is the sun, if it's middle of the day, directly overhead, we wouldn't expect to see many shadows, except on the undersides of platforms and other things sticking off from buildings or occluding that sunshine. So very, very quickly, we can start to see, is this image actually consistent with the time and the date that it was actually posted? And of course, being a weather guy, this is another quick fact check. I love this one. Do the weather conditions jive with when the picture or video was taken? If content's being posted and shared, and I'm not seeing too much correlation between other images, or there may be some discrepancies, just a quick Google search of weather in and wherever they say their location is, you can look back at historical observations where that picture was purportedly taken. And if it's supposed to be, say, 50 degrees and rainy, and it's sunny and people are walking around in shorts and t-shirts, probably a big red flag that that image is not from where it says it is. And this can be for international locations. This can even be locations within your state or your backyard. And finally, onto location. This is another one of my favorite ones. We talked about what that person's connection is to that particular location. Are they personally, do they live there? Have they shared other images that are from that location? And why are they sharing? What is their human connection to that place or to that event? And using context clues. This is another good one if you're looking at things involving, especially in the urban spaces. Look at license plates, street signs, businesses. Go in, drop those into Google. Look at the license plates. If they say that this is occurring in, say, Aurora, Colorado, whatever event this might be, are those Colorado license plates? Do you see lots of those in photos? Or are they license plates from other states that might also happen to have urban spaces with mountains in the background, perhaps as you look off to the west? Street signs and businesses are another one. I'll drop in those cross streets, those intersections, the names of the businesses, and looking at those, then not just from, okay, this is actually a real intersection. Go to Street View, drag the little Google man, drop him on to that intersection, that street address in front of that business, wherever it is. Does the view from the Google Maps car when it drove through, again, it might be a little bit old, but does that generally match what that photo sees as well? Are the businesses next to it, above it, below it, adjacent to it? Does all that start to jive and actually look like the photo, or like it does in the photo or the video that we're seeing? When it comes to a little bit more of a digital interrogation of the photo, the metadata, or what we call the EXIF data, those of us that do photography are really familiar with this. All of our camera settings are saved in that EXIF data for each photo, so we can go back and look at it. But for those of us taking pictures with our smartphones and even some digital cameras now, they will embed metadata. So it's data that's embedded into the photo. It doesn't say anything about you personally, but it will say what type of device took the photo, where it was taken, and when. If the device, like your cell phone, is equipped with a GPS, it appends that GPS tag, perhaps even saying what type of iPhone or Android device you took that with, what degrees, what orientation you were looking in, as well as perhaps even your elevation and other information that can help to lend some credence to the content that you're sharing. A huge disadvantage in our social media platforms is that metadata is very often, it's stripped out. It's retained by the platform itself on the back end. But if we were to search an image on Twitter, find it and download it, that metadata would not be preserved from the original photo. So it's a challenge, but it's one that we have to understand is there, depending on if we are sent these photos directly from family, from friends, from other folks. If they come to us directly, the original photo via email, via text message, or something of that nature, a more direct communication without a social media platform involved in between, that will allow us then to explore some of the the EXIF data or the metadata in those photos, and I'll show a quick example of what that looks like here when we get into the tools portion. And when it comes to one last thing is for digitally altered images, looking around the edges of people, around the edges of objects, and around the edges of the image itself. If a lot of times getting the edge, the transition right from the human or the object that's placed in a photo in a digitally altered fashion, not just the shading and the shadowing on them, but how they integrate into the overall image is often very hard to do in a very smooth fashion. So quick gut check, quick fact check, and if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. One of the things that we have talked about here in COVOST before, I share this in social media classes that I teach, and I'm sure you all have seen it as well, both in the digital space with events both outside and inside your jurisdictions. Social media is very self-correcting. There are a lot of digital detectives out there that will dispute the authenticity of images sometimes before we even discover them as members of COVOST or as members of our official agencies. I always take the time to give a quick run through of comments or replies or looking at who has retweeted a particular photo and what they're saying about it. And if there's some question or some concern or general consensus between commenters on those photos who may have more local knowledge than you or I do, that's another very quick fact check on that photo. With the self-correcting nature of social media, people will vicariously go in and start to dispel those rumors and those false images before we ever have the chance to go in and actually see them. So those are a couple different traditional ways, thinking about the source and interrogating the source of that photo or that content, looking at the date and the time. Does it match with when it said it was posted? And the location, looking at a couple different methods that we can use to look through it. So one that I'll show just a quick example, make sure I have the live photo here. Let's see. So this one from Kris Jenner on her Instagram, she was sharing this photo of the recent tragedy in Paris of the Notre Dame Cathedral catching fire. And now we see the cathedral burning in the foreground, but very prominently the Eiffel Tower standing out in the background amidst the billowing clouds of smoke. Now, I do have to say that despite this person being verified on Instagram, I was immediately skeptical of this. I personally had never been to Paris, so I couldn't say whether or not you could actually see the Eiffel Tower from the Notre Dame Cathedral, but there was quite some skepticism in my mind initially. So when I went in, I started looking at this photo, I immediately thought, well, geographically, first of all, how far apart are these things? Well, not just that, but I'm seeing the backlighting of the smoke. It's a very reddish hue, so that tells me it would probably be occurring during sunset. And the photographer here is looking from east to the west because the smoke is backlit very brightly in far away towards the Eiffel Tower. But as you get closer, there isn't much backlighting or illumination of that smoke plume. So that tells me that the source of that light would be coming from behind or more likely to the west at sunset, especially when this cathedral, looks like the later stages of the fire as we got on towards the evening hours as the fire did start in the middle part of the day. So a quick fact check like that and just going through that thought process is a good way to think about it. And so I jump onto Google Maps and I say, okay, from the Notre Dame to the Eiffel Tower, how do I get there? Well, I see that the cathedral here is to the east, Eiffel Tower to the west. So that would make sense that photo could have been taken. And looking off to the east of the cathedral, because this photo was taken clearly from an elevated position. We're looking over many of the rooftops here in Paris. And so looking off to the east, there are definitely places and buildings that people could have positions of advantage to get up to that height, looking off to the west during sunset as the Notre Dame Cathedral was burning. If we wanted to take it one step further, it looks like that smoke is actually drifting with the wind from the east off to the west towards that sunset. And if we went back and looked at the weather, I'll bet you had light easterly winds going from east to west, pushing that smoke plume and dispersing it off to the west. So from one photo, we can deconstruct all these little elements to help give some credibility and some credence to what we're seeing and what was being shared in a rapidly evolving event such as this. With EXIF and the metadata, again, this is information that's automatically appended to photos that are taken by smart or by digital devices. And depending on the age of the device and on the hardware and the features that are within it, we may get more information versus less information. Again, depending on depending on where that or how that device is configured to append the information. But it can also reveal a lot of information. So I'm going to bring up and show you all an example of that. So just bear with me for one moment. Find a good photo to show. All right, let me just change the window that I'm sharing here. Here, let's do this instead. Okay, so you should be able to see now my entire screen, tabs and web browsers and all. For this example, let's go back a little bit and look at, scrolling through all the fun photos here. Let's look at this one here in particular. This is one of my favorite trips from the summer. One of the photos that I took, and this is an original photo from my phone. So this will be full resolution, and it will also have all the information on there. And this is just to show an example of what that metadata now would look like. On Windows, on a PC, if you right-click on the photo and go down to Properties, again, mine's might be a little bit busier than yours. If you go down to Properties, then click on the Details tab, this is what we're talking about with some of that metadata. So it does show when that photo was taken as well as the time, some information on the image itself, the dimensions in this case. And then as you go down, it also includes some other information about the camera that took the photo. It is indeed an iPhone 8 Plus that I own, along with all the different camera settings. Again, for my photography nerds like myself, this is always good information if we want to go back and look at what made that photo so awesome. And going down, there is some other information in there. And as we get down towards the bottom, we have GPS information. So we have latitude, longitude, and altitude as taken from the GPS on my phone, in this case, when that image was taken. This GPS information could be copied and pasted, put into a platform like Google Maps, and that's going to then show me where that image was taken, and I could even zoom in on that and look at it from that perspective. Another program that I like to use is called IrfanView. IrfanView, IrfanView, is a very lightweight photo viewer. that has I think a really great display for metadata. So I'm going to show just quickly what that would look like. I'll drag this photo into IrFan view, opens it up. Many of you may recognize this as Zion National Park. If I go then to image and information in IrFan view, I go down to the EXIF info. Now I have a whole lot more information. And again, this is if you are sent a photo directly via text message or via email. This is all information that can be viewed within that photo. And one of the nice things about IrFan view that I truly do love is at the bottom, it shows, has a couple different options. And so this one, for example, to show in Google Maps, if I click on that, it's going to plot the latitude and longitude where it says that came from the photo where it was taken. And you'll see it's at the end of what it's called Observation Point Trail. Okay, it's looking a little bit more credible, right, from the viewpoint. If I go over to satellite view, I'll see that right here it was on this kind of rock outcropping overlooking the valley. And if I zoom out, the photo was indeed taken in Zion National Park. In this case, looking to the south towards the open valley, as we saw in here, close all this out, looking here to the south towards town. So using tools that we would already commonly use day to day, some different third-party viewers and other things, but Google Maps, a great tool for a fact check and a gut check. If you can get a latitude and longitude, drop it in and plot it up where it is, and even Street View, or if you want to get savvy and use Google Earth, then you can actually zoom in and kind of put yourself right at this point on the edge of this rock outcropping and see what it would look like from that person's perspective utilizing the Google Earth view. I won't do that here since it's pretty data heavy right now. And I'm actually on my phone as a remote connection. Internet's having trouble in the valley this morning. So I'm going to allow you to do that on your own time. And you can try this with photos that you have taken from your phone. Just drag and drop them in and pull the latitude and longitude, put it in, and practice doing this just with some of the photos that you've taken to get comfortable with it. So I will jump back now to our training agenda. I'm going to go back to just that screen, or excuse me, just that window. All right, so now we're a little bit more zoomed in here back on the training agenda. And that's a little bit on the EXIF and the metadata. So for a technical analysis now, we've talked about our traditional fact checking and kind of those quick gut checks. Now onto the technical analyses and focusing a little bit more on the metadata. This first photo is one of my favorite photos to look at. I remember seeing the image of the tornado, which is actually a water spout and a lightning strike, and looks like an oil rig, oil drilling platform there in the foreground. Very, very striking photo, and one that if it were to be shared online, very easily could be construed as an authentic photo. The lighting on the backside of the water spout looks great, the illumination from that lightning bolt. And but if you look at how that oil rig is placed there in the foreground, depending on where it says the image was taken, and if it was Florida with the trees and the kind of the haze in the atmosphere, very possible. Don't know about oil drilling though, in places where you'd get water spouts or that adjacent to bodies of water down there. But immediately you start to see that oil rig really stands out. It's really prominent in the foreground versus a more grainy and kind of not so crisp edge to the clouds and that funnel cloud there, that water spout in the background. So immediately you can start to get some, hey, this might not be legitimate and authentic. And again, doing a good Photoshop job, some can do it very easily, but not everyone does it quite well. So this image, I do have a link to it if you want to follow along and go along with me here in the training agenda. If we click on that link, it takes you to the full image. So this is the full image that we see in all of its glory. And we can start to then utilize some other tools, not just metadata, but some other tools to say, has an image like this or any part of it been used before? And that's where we're going to now get into a couple of tools known as TinEye, TINEYE, as well as Google Reverse Image Search. So this photo, let's quickly dump this in to Google Image Search and run a reverse image search on it. That is, instead of going to Google Images and looking for an image of something using words, we're going to harness the power of the great Google engine, and we're going to ask Google to take this image that we're seeing here on the screen. Has anything like it been shared before? So for that, I'm going to right click on the image. Again, I'm in the Google Chrome browser. Depending on the one that you're using, so the menus may be slightly different. And I'm going to copy the image address. Again, if I'm in Google Chrome, I can right click and say search Google for image. That's the shortcut, but I'm going to show the long version for those that may not be using Google Chrome. I'm going to copy image address, so the direct link to that image. I'll open up a browser tab, images.google.com. I go in there, see Google Images pops up. I can right click, I can paste the direct link to that photo. So the URL directly to that photo, I'll hit enter or click the little magnifying glass, and that'll drop in, and Google will then take this image and say, are there any visually similar images to it that have perhaps been used in the past? First hit, a guide to spotting fake, or at least we can imagine what that headline says. So that's a good hint that that probably is not an authentic photo. Scrolling through, Google thinks, well, it's definitely a photo of a tornado. But as I get to the bottom, this guy right here looks very, very familiar. That's the right half of that photo with the water spout and the lightning bolt. That oil rig was placed into the foreground there to provide an extra sense of perhaps an emotional response from folks that work in areas where there can be tornadoes, lightning, and in the vicinity of oil rigs. So just by doing a reverse Google image search, Google was able to identify this part of the image that was original, and we see the altered image here. Another one of my favorites, snowfall forecasts, seasonal forecasts. That's a whole nother topic for another time, and we can talk about that over refreshing beverages if we ever meet up. But this is an image which I know was first posted back in 2014, and it's regularly shared every fall because, of course, we know that those of us in the northern tier, we're generally going to get more snowfall than not. Those in the Northeast with getting the nor'easters, yeah, well, it's pretty much a yearly occurrence. And below normal snowfall along the Gulf Coast, shocker. However, seeing this posted, what we often see now is that it's not just images like this that have been doctored and shared as new and original content, but people are resharing old images from old events, things that incite and have incited a strong emotional response and garnered much engagement from past events. This is one example here of snowfall maps, because everyone likes to talk about weather and snow and how much snow we're getting here over the winter season, but also sharing old images and saying, oh, hey, look, and they'll try to put it in the context of a new story, even though the image may have nothing to do or not even be associated with the story that's being talked about currently. There's some, we talked about Google Reverse Image Search, and there's a direct link to it here. Again, in the training agenda, you can bookmark that. I have a whole folder, a whole bookmarks folder with some of these tools in it. TinEye is another one, and we'll use that to show the snowfall forecast map. So TinEye, using similar technology to Google, where it's looking at the pixels in the image and have similar groupings of those pixels been found before. So for here, I'm going to go in. So this image here, we could take it and then upload it or drag it and drop it into TinEye. So for example, here, see, I believe this URL is still valid. Here we are. So go in there, find that actual image. And again, you can do that from the URL that's linked below that photo if you're following along. Go in here, click on the photo to bring it up full screen. And now if I right click, copy image address, go into TinEye, and you can either upload the image from your computer if you've already downloaded it or received it perhaps via email, or paste the direct link in and say search. So TinEye is going to go back, look through its image crawling database, and it can go back and look, and here we got several results. If this was an authentic image that had not been used before, we should not get any results back, or perhaps only the result from the source where we found it. Here I'm going to go back and look at oldest, and here we see September 8th, 2014 is where TinEye first found this image to have been posted on the World Wide Web. So if we're talking and you see this, say, or a snowfall forecast map for the current upcoming winter season, you can go and look by the results that are found. And if it's showing the same image, from this case, 2014, we probably know this is a recycled piece of content that's meant to generate discussion and to further infuriate meteorologists everywhere. So that's an example of using the TinEye tool. Again, all these tools, no cost. The EXIF viewer, and this is another one for viewing metadata from images. This is one that's very browser friendly. I'll just show it really quick here. I guess that's moved. That's new. And this gentleman that created this is where instead of downloading, say, a program like IrfanView, if you want to keep it all web browser based, you can say for this example, upload a file or copy and paste the direct link to the image so that you're not a robot, and then view image data. That will, in fact, let's show that one. So if we say view image data, this probably isn't going to give us much from empirenews.net, but it'll show, I guess in this case, when that image is originally from, as well as some information about it. And if we scroll down, we start to see some more information about that photo. And indeed, showing the metadata, looks like when it was posted, September 6, 2014, when it was modified, but it was originally created back in February of 14. So able to drill down a little bit more into the photos and images that we're seeing. But now videos are becoming more and more prominent. Videos are actually garnering the most engagement of most online social media content, as YouTube continues to rise now to be above Facebook as the most popular social media platform that's used now within the United States and worldwide. Right? Think about how many times you go to search YouTube for this one do-it-yourself video, and 3 hours later you're like, how did I get to this? Right? We've all been there. And that's why that video, that content is so engaging, and it can be shared so widely. Amnesty International is an organization that's actually set up an online tool to look and see, has that video content on YouTube been shared or reposted at another time within the YouTube platform. It's not a perfect tool. It's only if the video has not been digitally altered will it find it. However, there is a tool, and it's it's a browser extension for Chrome and for Firefox called InVid. I've linked it here. I've actually played around with it. It's quite good. And what it allows you to do is to paste direct links to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter videos to get more information on the origins of it. And from there, just a couple quick takeaways here from the video portion. A local host agency, perhaps you have some IT folks that are pretty savvy, or at least at the state level. We have the Colorado Information Analysis Center, the CIAC, as you may hear it termed, that can do a lot more digital forensics type of review on things. But in the heat of the moment, these are some quick tools and some ways to go through. But even though we don't have many no-cost digital tools to analyze videos, we can still use those traditional fact-checking techniques, such as when it says the content was posted, looking at the weather, looking at the time of day, the shadows, the sunset. Does it match up with what the story is that's being told by photos and by text on similar or on other social media platforms? So that's a quick hit overview on the video analysis side. As far as on mobile devices, where most of us live and work and play and work and so on, there are two apps, at least on the iOS side. I did not have time to go into the Android side. So if any of you Android users out there have photo or image verification tools, or tools that you use to view metadata or EXIF data, feel free to drop those into the training channel. Tell us what you're using so that we can help to inform other members of our team. The two that I like, one is Photo Investigator, and the other is called Metafo. Both are linked there. Both are no-cost apps. The thing that I like about those is that if you have an image that's sent to you, say via text message, and you need to quickly fact check it, when you open the image in one of these apps, it gives you the option to view the location on a Google map. So it'll drop a pin on the Google map where it says that image was taken, and it's a very, very quick reference as to where people can, as to where that image was taken from. Same thing as talking very quickly on the 911 or the public safety side for search and rescues and those types of operations. People are saying, hey, here's what I'm seeing at this intersection. Here's what I'm seeing here. Hey, I'm lost. This is what I see around me. And they're able to send out a picture, perhaps. We could take that, open it on our device, look at where their GPS says that they are, and we can start to mobilize resources to assist those people or to deal with whatever situation might be occurring there. Very, very rapidly. And again, all with these no-cost tools. Just a couple of examples here on the iOS side of things. So to bring this home, the bottom line, when it comes to verifying and authenticating content online, we can never be 100% sure whether it's fake or whether it's real unless we or someone we know actually created or took that piece of content and shared it as an original source. Trust your gut. It's a great tool. Just think of, I always go the Gibbs route from NCIS, right? Trust your gut, go with your gut. That's how he kind of goes through life as his character there on the TV show NCIS. But for me, it's often, I found it to be very, very helpful in the public safety world, in the 911 world, as well as in the digital media world, where if something sounds a little bit too good to be true, it just might be. So trusting, but verifying. And this is especially important during these high impact events and these events that are rapidly evolving. And as information is being shared, we'd like to make sure that we are, as agencies, sharing real information in near real time, as well as dispelling false images, rumors, and doing our fact checking before sharing photos, so we're not having to backpedal as we go on throughout a particular event. So all in all, if something just doesn't seem right or it defies the laws of physics, it's probably fake. Two of my absolute favorites, tornado sucking up a rainbow. I didn't know that swirling wind could actually suck up light into it, but hey, that's a new one to me. And of course, the Cthulhu in the clouds here in the mountains, maybe could happen. If you're seeing that, let me know what you're on. I'd love to try it because clearly that's someone having a great time if they're seeing something that's that out there. So just a few humorous images there to wrap this up. But for our practical exercise, this is from a high-profile event that recently occurred in Colorado. If you remember Sol, who came to Colorado, she wanted to we believe, do a repeat of the Columbine shooting, whose anniversary is coming up here. She was recently found to be deceased. However, as this information was coming out in real time, this is just one example that I found from the Houston Chronicle, so very removed from Colorado, where this event was unfolding. It's the caption, you can read it there on the screen, but the photo source here at the bottom says it's from Picasa, which I know is it was a Google tool at one time, a Google Photos tool. And so immediately there's some question, especially with the difference in quality of images on one side of this versus the other. So this was citing Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, who is amazing and sponsors our helps to sponsor our team and the background checks and things that we do. And it cites them as the authority on this, which is not unheard of. And Jefferson County is kind of where this was all kind of evolving from and going out from as this case evolved. But fact checking and looking at why, this paper from Houston, why is the photo source a program that hasn't been around for several years? So using some of the tools and techniques, going back, and you can utilize the photo, go back and look for, is this actually authentic or is it not? And there's a couple of direct links I have in here. I have 4 direct links to photos, both from recent events and some events in the past. And using some of those tools and techniques, here's 4 images you can start with to practice in determining the authenticity of the photo using the non-technical as well as perhaps some of the technical tools and techniques that we have discussed previously. So that is what I'll kind of leave you all with here as an activity to carry you through on this glorious Friday, and practice doing this for any incidents or events. Especially if they're not occurring in your community, utilize those as a time to practice and to hone these techniques so that if you or we as the team should be called upon, we can be ready to rock and roll. Any questions about verifying and authenticating digital media content, I'll be happy to take those live at this time. Again, you can drop that in the chat room. You can unmute yourself and speak with the team here. Or I'm also happy, you can drop those questions in the training channel on Slack so that we can crowdsource an answer. All right, hearing none at the time, as those questions come up, by all means, please feel free to do so. Drop those in there. Please do be sure to log your time in the check-in, check-out tab on the April training workbook. Your time is very, very valuable to us, and we want to make sure that we're noting that so that we can keep track of your contributions as members of the Colorado Virtual Operations Support Team. And if you're viewing this recording after the fact, please, again, make sure to do that as well. We want to make sure that you're getting recognized for the time that you're putting in and dedicating to us here as a team. Next meeting, looking ahead now, July 19 at 9 a.m., we're going to be talking about some best practices and pitfalls with digital media monitoring. And this is going to be more of a panel-based discussion. We're going to loop in some of our digital media monitoring experts from both public and private sectors. to talk about and share some of their experiences. And we'd love to have you all attend and to view that as well, and to challenge them and ask them questions, because again, these are going to be some very high caliber folks that we bring in. And I want to make sure that it is worthwhile to you all, and so that you can get those burning questions answered with regard to the good, the bad, and the ugly with digital media monitoring. And of course, what would you like to learn or teach about? We're happy to have you share your thoughts and your experiences with the team. We'd love you all to do that, both to help the team grow and to help share your success stories or some of the challenges and how you overcame them, as either personally or as an agency. And of course, that's all I have for you this morning. If there's no questions, much love. Thank you all for attending, either live or remotely. Have a great rest of your Friday or whatever day you're viewing this. Enjoy the sunshine. Happy summer.
Thank you, Kyle. And thank you all of the members. And Kyle, I did have comments that this is the best audio ever. So nice job.
Oh, fantastic. Sweet. My podcast microphone is working great.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and shut off the recording. Have a good weekend, guys. Happy Easter.